Our moderator today is Dora Chomiak, who has deep roots in this great institution and to the Ukrainian community in New York. Back in the 60s, her parents organized meetings here in Columbia for Ukrainian poets during the period known as the Thaw, when Khrushchev's policies allowed relaxed relations between the U.S. and USSR. And her mother went on to get her PhD at this university, too. Dora herself graduated from Princeton and worked in Kiev during the 1990s, where she helped create several media companies and programs, the most notable being the Ukrainian Independent Information Agency, better known as Union, which has become one of the primary news agencies in Ukraine. She later returned to New York and completed her MBA here at Columbia University.
Go Columbia.
Ms. Dora Chomiak went on to become a media and advertising executive working in firms such as McGraw-Hill Financial and Thomson Reuters. She currently serves on the board of the nonprofit organization Razom. Razom is a platform with a network of volunteers that is active in a wide variety of projects throughout the U.S. and in Ukraine. It is dedicated to supporting the people of Ukraine and is a great ally of our student organization. It is our pleasure to have her moderate for us today.
Thank you. What you may not know, because I started doing some digging yesterday to get ready for a conversation, that and I learned today at age 4, our guest started learning to speak English and had the good fortune of studying in a primary school with an intensive English language program, and then went on in 1990 to participate on an exchange program that the Rotary Club ran and spent 2 months in Canada. So exchange program students, anyone been on an exchange program? Anywhere? Anywhere? It doesn't have to be Ukraine? Awesome. All right, cool. So we all kind of know who we're talking, get to be speaking with today. The format will be like this. Mr. Vakarchuk.
You can say Slava, it's okay.
Slava is actually visiting us today from Yale, where he now is one of a very small group of people from all around the world participating in the Yale Fellows Program, where I'm insanely jealous that he gets to audit any class he wants for 4 months. So he was able to travel from New Haven to the center of the universe, which is New York City, my hometown. And he's going to talk for about 45 minutes a bit about how he sees the future of Ukraine. Then, since I have a microphone, I get to ask a few questions, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. Does that all sound like what we just agreed to?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here. A little bit confused because it's a little bit freezing here. So I hope we'll either formally rise up the temperature or we'll rise up the temperature with your questions afterwards. But then you need to wait for that. Fortunately, we have our coffee, but you don't. So. But for some of you who are jealous, you know, my coffee is already almost over. So soon we'll be the same positions. I didn't have an intention to present you any thoughts or lectures, but yesterday I had another good conversation with a sort of academic or student environment at Harvard, and I had that lecture there. And it was a sort of, people were enthusiastic and they were happy to hear that, and I just decided probably to do that again today, because you know, these questions and Q&As about me, about all these, I would say, cheesy questions, or how you name it. You can ask me anywhere, and even you know it from the press. But what I want you to know is what I am thinking about present and future of Ukraine. I am not talking about the past today, because I think we talk about past and think and reflect on past more than necessary. So probably we need to talk about future and focus on that. And I'll tell you a little bit about who is the biggest enemy and who is the biggest friend of Ukraine, in my humble opinion. And probably afterwards we will have discussion and Q&As, and I will be very happy not only to talk to you or to present my thoughts, but only to listen. What do you guys think? Do you have any opinions on what I describe and will describe, and probably some proposals on your vision of Ukraine, because actually that's something that I'm thinking about. I asked to bring these charts or these boards, or what is a flip chart, because probably I'll put down some thoughts. I'm not very strong in PowerPoint presentations anyway. We don't have here a screen, so
just a big movie screen.
Yeah. So we couldn't do it anyway. So I'll start. When we talk about future of Ukraine, it's very important, I think. Can you decrease the level of microphone a little bit, because I think it's like feedback. Can you hear it now? Okay, it's better, right? When we talk about future of Ukraine, we first need to define the goal, or the point where we want Ukraine to approach. Sometimes I feel that this goal is not defined, because people think of different options, different issues talking about Ukraine. So I define my personal goal for Ukraine is to become a prosperous country. It's very simple and very wide, but you can measure it. You can measure it by GDP numbers. You can measure it by, actually you can measure it arithmetically. So I think it's the best thing to define a goal, because if you say I want to make my people happy, it's a little bit murky and a little bit vague, because we have different perceptions of happiness. But prosperity is something you can count and measure. So I would say let's define a goal. I think everybody can agree with me, to make Ukraine a prosperous country. So to define this goal, we need to have a strategy. But before we come to strategy, we want to define our weak and strong issues, our weaknesses and advantages. And before we want to have that, we probably need to have tools or a framework within which we're gonna move and operate. I mean, we need to know some basic rules or basic principles, how the goal I defined could be approached. So I will put down 5 basic. Let's start from this one. It's a framework. It's not strategy. It's not what we're gonna do. It's some principles, rules, or philosophy we should, keep in our mind while implementing our strategy. So, I put the framework. And number 1 is think about Ukraine in terms of future, not in terms of past. I'll explain a little bit. It seems to me that we have a very complicated past. And it seems to me that many our politicians and generally people who care about what is going on in Ukraine are focused too much on what was in Ukraine earlier, used to be earlier, and these things, they divide us. We have, all of you know that our history is complicated, and Ukraine as a country, as an international country, emerged only 25 years ago. Before that, you had this country was always, or almost always, not mentioning times of Kazakh Republic and Kivrus times, always Ukrainians were always part of some big empires or big, they were subordinates to big authorities. Namely, the last 200-300 years, Russian Empire, which became afterwards Soviet Union, and Austro-Hungarian Empire. So heading to these different parts, we had two different developments, two societies, like the Western and Eastern Ukraine. So some of these people, like living in Western Ukraine, faced the policy and approach of Austro-Hungarians, which allowed, for example, Ukrainians to keep their culture, preserve them, and to be, like, cautious, and to be, I would say, to understand that what Ukrainian culture, language, and habits were. Was it because Austro-Hungarian Empire was more, let's say, human, or they did like Ukrainians more than, for example, Russian Empire, who were like more strict and they had different approach to policy? No, it was everything not because of that. It was just practical reasons, because the Kaiser of Austro-Hungary, he thought of Western Ukraine, of Galicia, as a part of a place where two nations, dominant nations, Polish and Ukrainians, and in order not of one of that nation to dominate, they wanted to keep both of them fighting for their, cultures and rivaling each other. And that was their policy that also kept, kept them safe from having a big nationalistic approach from Polish or Ukrainians. So both of them were given the right to fight for their culture. That's how we preserve our culture and language and habits and the religion in Western Ukraine. So we should be conscious. So if we know that Western Ukrainians now speak Ukrainian, they're like more European oriented, they are more conscious about their roots and origins. That's not because they are better, or not because Eastern Ukrainians are worse, or they love the country in blacks. That's just because under circumstances these parts of Ukraine were developed. And we need to understand that now. And if we want to have the country keep safe and not collapse and keep sustainable, we need to understand that the past is complicated, and we need to have only memory from the past, but not the past itself. Because from my point of view, if you have a memory and you remember, it's your knowledge and it's your torch on the road to future. When you have the past it's just a burden, a grip on your backpack that you need to bring. And if you go somewhere, if you want to climb up and you really want to do it, like on Everest, so the harder your backpack is, the heavier your backpack is, the harder it is for you to come up and to climb. So we need to focus on our future, our joint future, and I want to define our nation today in terms of 21st century nation, not in terms of 19th century nation. That's a big problem of many Ukrainian intellectuals. They still do think of Ukraine as a country of, say, DNA, Ukrainians by origin, people who speak Ukrainian, who just define themselves as somebody with the roots of, proper nationality, Ukrainian nationality. I think that should be fine for the approach of the end of 19th century, when, as you probably read, the famous book of Hannah Arendt, who wrote a book, Totalitarianism and Imperialism, and she defines very good, issues and points how people in 19th century succeeded to gain their independence. They defined nationality as the only tool to fight imperialism, because nationalism was a very good idea to oppose itself to imperialism, because before that, people didn't feel their nationalities. They were part of the empires, they felt as subordinates and subject of kingdoms, of rulership, of divine kings, of queens, empires, and powers. So after that, nationalism emerged, and it was very important to fight that way. Nowadays, it's gone, because the world is flat, as Thomas Friedman from New York already said, from Washington, said. The world is flat. We don't have all these formal borders. In the world of internet, of interconnection, of interdependence, we need to define nation differently. So we have people, in my point of view, nation is people who want to live together in the future. We share the future, we share the goals, they're together, no matter where they came from, no matter how they approach to this point today. Okay, let's stop here, let's start from the very beginning, let's say we are all living in a new Ukraine and start moving forward. That's something that you guys, I mean, some of you who possess American passports and feel Americans, there's something that you guys did in 1776. So it was a brand new thing, a brand new country. Nobody told you where are you from, west or east, what language or your religion was yours. It was just principles and basic things. Ukraine needs to do that. I know for some of you it probably can sound a little bit utopian because we still have past and we can't get rid of it. We don't need to get rid of it. We have our memories. We have our language. Although we have 2 languages in the country where these people speak, and we need to, be aware of the fact that all things that other people aside of country or adversaries or rivals want to make to have our weaknesses, we need to make it no weakness but our advantage. So the second thing is very, I would say, realpolitik approach, which I admire very much. First, there was a famous quote, I believe, by Prime Minister of Great Britain, the United Kingdom, the times of Queen Victoria, Lord Palmerston, who said that Britain has no permanent allies and Britain has no permanent enemies. Britain has only permanent interests.
Yes.
And that's something Ukraine needs to stick to. I mean, we should stop talking about who is a friend of Ukraine and who is an enemy of Ukraine, who is an adversary, who will be backing you. Nobody will but yourself. So the framework, the number 2 should be no enemies, no friends, interests. I'm afraid it will take me a little bit more time than 40 minutes. Third, we should be aware of our geography. I mean, when I say aware, I mean conscious. We need to understand that geography is what we have, and we won't change our borders. I mean, they are being changed right now, but I think that's a different story. We'll talk about that, but generally, we won't change our position on the map. We'll have the same neighbors, good or bad, name it, but you will have them. You need to keep aware, be aware of it, and to keep our conscience very clear that that's not going to change, and nobody will get deprive us of that. It will be there everywhere, all the time. So geography, be aware of geography. It's freezing here. That's why I'm trying to be so energetic. The fourth thing is to approach our goal, we need to have established and rely on robust civil society. I will talk about it later, but civil society is our key to success. No authority, no power, no allies from other countries, no money, just civil society. Robust civil society. And we'll talk about it later because it's probably one of the most important tools. And the last one, but not the least, probably it's also very important to keep in mind for everybody who builds this country, is all we do, all the steps, all the strategies, all the tactics should be subordinated, should be should go with one notion, that we need to have constant development and sustainability, step by step. Doesn't matter how fast, how fast is it. We need to keep that going all the time, step by step. Sustainability and constancy of development. So these are five, I would say, tools. That's not strategies. That's not something we need to achieve or approach. That's some principles we need to use while approaching and using our strategy. So now we'll come to the very, very beginning, and I'll say you. So why don't we achieve all these things? So what is the obstacle? Who is our biggest, enemy? Some people say that, mentality is our big obstacle. Probably there is something in these words, but I'll give you some examples, and you'll understand that mentality has nothing to do with it. Consider Korea. We have two countries, North Korea and East Korea and South Korea. You know that these countries are slightly different. Do you think these people have different mentality? I don't think so. That's one nation. I mean, in the terms of DNA, or it's one nation. They still have common grannies. They have common families, common past and everything. So they were separated 70 years ago. 70 years is nothing for mentality. Mentality is being formed for hundreds of years. So they have the same mentality. So why do they? Then South Korea has GDP per capita 30 times bigger than North Korea, I believe. So don't tell me about mentality. It's it's an excuse. I don't believe in that excuse. It's nothing that has to do with mentality. Some say that it's ethnical and cultural homogeneity. Like Belgium, Switzerland, Singapore, Morocco, they have Arabs and Berbers, name it. Finally, the USA. Yeah, finally the USA. So ethnical and cultural homogeneity is not anymore, and it's actually for last couple of hundreds of years, starting from the United States and probably other countries afterwards, it's never more an obstacle to building a sustainable society. So probably this, and even more than that, we probably have cultural diversity, but generally we are a homogeneous country. So what I think, the fact that we have two languages, it's not an obstacle. Comparison to Singapore, who has not only two languages, but three languages which are completely different, and they can't understand each other speaking their mother tongues. Three different religions, Malaysians, who are, by the way, Muslims and speak Malaysian. Then they have Tamil Indians, who are generally, I believe, they are Hindus or I believe are Buddhists. I don't know. I believe, yeah. And then they have Confucius Chinese, who speak different language, and they have like the British past and many white, big number of white settlers, and all that somehow they managed to keep in one bowl, and they made like a real good soup from that, I think. So that's not a question as well. Some say controversial history. Once again, I'll name you Spain with their civil war. I'll name you Belgium, which was artificially created after Napoleonic Wars. There was no country like Belgium, and there was no nation like Belgium. They created from two parts, from Wallon part, French-speaking part, the part of Napoleon country, and also Flemish part, which probably were that time they felt more like Dutch people. So how do they manage to build a nation? Suddenly we even now have some controversy. They sometimes argue with each other, but still it's a prosperous country. They live together. Everything is all right. Take Spain or even the United States with their bloody civil war, 1856, 1861. So there were many people who didn't believe that there's one nation these times. Remember, the times of Gettysburg Address, how desperately Lincoln was trying to keep this country together. And actually, a very interesting fact, even I didn't know that before. So actually, if you see in the history, he was not defending abolitionism, and he was not consciously just anti-slavery guy. What he wanted to do, he wanted to preserve the country. So he said, okay, if we all go anti-slavery, let's do it. If all guys decide that slavery is necessary, okay, I'm not that much about that, up to that, but let's do that. But let's keep country together. So somehow all of these prosperous countries went through periods of, turmoil, uncertainty, and many other things. Lastly, hostile neighbors. What to do with neighbor we do have now? Yeah, I will say that's a hard one. But you have Israel. Israel is surrounded not by the best neighbors in the world, for them. So some of them even don't recognize the right for the country to exist. So somehow they managed to build a country, although they have although they have a lot of difficulties, obstacles. They do many controversial things which Europeans, for example, treat differently. But remember one of these frameworks: no enemies, no friends, just interests. So they just keep going. Somehow they keep going. Once again, we can talk about right good things, but who are we, non-Israelis, to judge them? Because it's their future. I mean, we can have our own opinion, but it's their future. The same, I don't want somebody else to judge what Ukrainians do, but because it's our future. I respect what America wants from us. I respect what China or Russia wants from us, but I'm sorry, that's our future. So we somehow will do what we need to do. So I think all these obstacles are actually not obstacles. These are some difficulties we need to overcome, and we need to somehow to handle them, but it's possible and it's plausible. So what is then the biggest enemy, and the most hard one and the most difficult one? From my point of view, it's one word, and this word is distrust. We distrust our government, we distrust other people, and moreover we distrust ourselves. That's Ukrainian biggest enemy. You just think about that a little bit, and you understand. It's not only the Ukrainians don't rely on their government. It's not only the Ukrainians don't rely on their city mates or peers or friends. They don't rely on themselves. They just don't trust themselves, and that's something that make them. There is a good English word I've learned just here. It's called diffidence. Not that many people know that. It's like when you're not confident in yourself. You're just a sort of how to say it. You're not sure of your potency. You're not sure of your skills, and you have all these second thoughts about yourself, So,
but confidence is such an important part of trust. You can't ever trust someone else if you're not confident in yourself.
Yeah, that's true. So, what are origins of distrust? From my point of view, it's three main things. It's upbringing, it's education, and it's lack or absence of positive examples or role or models. Focus on all of them. But before that, I will define, once again, I'm a physicist, so I like thinking with frameworks or some mathematical apparatus which helps you to define things. So let's define two movements or two tendencies: a bottom-up movement, which what we call civil society, and top-down movements, which is like development from the top, in simple words, one thing, what should civil society and ordinary people do, and then what authorities or power men should do. So start with the first, upbringing. It's a long story. You can't change the way you were brought up, but you can change and make it different with your children. Confidence, reliability on their own skills and talents is vital just to implement it in the families, within the families. Find people of your circle and try to expand it day by day and year by year. So bring up your children differently than you were brought up. Just understand that confidence and, this idea of freedom of choice is vital and important for destroying or eliminating distrust we were talking about. So your children will see it, they will understand it, and they will value it. They will they will absorb this idea, this new interface, new framework. Thus you will create a new cell of civil society, which is family. It's a smaller cell. Other people will create their own cells, and I'll like probably we have many things now. We have some of them. So let's see this one cell of one good family, which is different from what was before. So remember, like, you were brought up in one framework, and you try to come over the things and to do it different. So you are the first. Somebody will do it next to you, then the others will find it next to you, and then we'll combine together, and you will sort of expand and interact with each other, and then finally you will merge merge each other. So you'll have bigger cell, and it's like, other people around you will find the most skillful and the most committed and the most successful to make their local leaders. And these leaders will be guiding themselves, guiding others. So finally you'll have many of these clusters, and they will be united in big clusters, which already, so initial society cells will form bigger society cells, like communities and and district communities and city communities and things like that. And then this upbringing, it's very important, because you need to show children that there is a different way. And children are very grateful usually, because you don't need to invest that much. The interest rate will be really big, much bigger than we grown-up people. So that's about upbringing. Then about education. So you should organize volunteering movements at schools, in kindergartens, like basic things. Do your own Saturday and Sunday schools. Just organize them themselves. Don't ask for, citing once again Kennedy, ask not what the country can do for you, ask what you can do for your children. I will say that. Yeah. So do your own Saturday, Sunday schools for children, where those who have skills and courage and commitment can teach and educate them probably differently from the schools, if the school has not managed to do that. But show them some things. Organize museums and nature tours. Take the children not only of your family, but 10, 15, 20 families. Go with them to Museum of Arts. Go with them to have a barbecue, to show them trees, things like that. Be pilots of the process. And trees, right? Yeah. No, I mean tree.
No, it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Help to. Then the other thing is higher education. Help to find financial possibilities and promote the idea, encourage the idea of higher education abroad, like here in the USA. Not only for your children, but help if you see somebody bright or somebody smart who just don't have idea how to apply for American university, or who thinks that he needs a lot of money. Just get together, either sponsor him, or just sometimes many Ukrainians even don't know that money is not the key issue here. If you're talented and bright, you can go here and they will pay for you. I mean, many people have no clue about that. So don't only think of your own families, but think of other people. So these, this common action that creates what we need to have. It creates trust, mutual trust, not only in yourself, but trust in yourself, but also mutual trust between members of this primary or initial civil cells, what we was talking about. Then role models or successful examples. One more thing before that for you, local advice we can talk about later. You can create a big association of Ukrainian alumni, and I know there are some of them that already exist, but not just formal, just to go somewhere to have a drink sometimes or to see each other, but do some things, make it really work. Include alumni of top 100 universities in the world, not only from America, abroad. I know many people of Ukrainians are in Singapore, in Japan, in Germany, whatever, and interact with each other, promote each other, and make a sort of party, non-political, but a sort of political party with non-political means. I mean, be a framework for new Ukrainian, bench of substitutes for bigger, for bigger goals later. I know some of you are already doing that, but actually I don't see it. So yesterday we already argued about that at Harvard. So it's good that it exists, but let you interfere and to interfere and alter the common, course of events in Ukraine. Just do something as well. And the third idea I was mentioning, part of education, and I'm bringing its positive examples and role models. So there are many things you guys or we guys as civil society can do without any help of government. Moreover, contrary or despite of countries, authorities, non-desire, non-willingness to participate, just to be opposite to that. Hong Kong in 60s or 70s, I don't remember, they presented a city advocate system. So they had just people with law like lawyers, or people with economic education, or just smart and enthusiastic people without basic education who started up voluntary advocate movements to help the other people who are less confident, who are less educated or intelligent in that way, to solve their local problems. You just go to court. If you need, go to sue the authorities. If you need help them, I don't know how to explain in English, the word JAC. Go to JACs, just fight for...
In New York, it's a community board.
Yeah. So you can do it without any official, standard, stamp, and it's not only the authorities don't need to approve that, but it's despite of their will. You can need it because that's a rivalry between the high authorities, between the power possessed people and civil society. What create then mutual trust between bigger part of this society. So you do that, you learn your rights, your constitutional possibilities, and start helping. Every new successful story will enhance courage, your peers, and and even passive observers, even people who say, okay, I don't think that you can do something with it. The first initial distrust is going to change with trust after you have first, second, third good example, and that has nothing to do with reforms from top down. Promote your own activity through Facebook and social media. Be active. Don't be very modest. Don't be just be self-confident. Promote yourself. Say, come on, I did that. I helped to these desperate or disinherited people and disinherited people. Yeah, and I did it because I wanted to do that. Is somebody else joining me? Okay, let's have 3 of us, 4 of us, 10 of us. Promote yourself. Don't be modest. Don't be shy of yelling, crying loud of what you're doing. So those of you who become most successful and persuasive will form and constitute a foundations for future political movements, and which in turn will be converted into real political parties. We don't have real political parties not only because the guys in Kiev don't want them to develop. The political parties are not created from top down. Once again, they're created bottom up movements. You don't need to have a big national party in Kiev. Just make a small district party. Make small political movement in your region, then in your oblast, in wherever. Be successful, and after that you'll see how many talented, interesting, brand new leaders you have. So these all things I was talking about, it's in respect to bottom-up movement, civil society. Then come back to big guys, top-down movement. What should they do? the first thing they should do is to share power with local communities. They need to give up part of their power. It's what we call now decentralization, although some of you think that this word smells bad because some of you think that means that you want to divide the country into parts. No way. We still need to have a strong government with a strong and very transparent, rights and tools in Kiev. It means you suddenly don't give up right of foreign policy, national bank things. You don't give up, intelligence, army things. That suddenly should be very strong. But you should give to more rights and powers to people to earn their money locally and to spend their money locally. I think it's much better that when Lviv or Odessa or Kharkiv, local authorities take care of money they take from their people, because they know better what roads they do need, they know better what kindergartens or schools that they need. They don't need to go to Kiev all the time to ask on bended knees, please give us new money, because what our system now creates, it creates typically different behavior of successful local authority or a power man. Who is a successful mayor nowadays? Is somebody who can go to Kiev and to solve the question and the problem there and to get the things done in Kiev. That's a completely different story if it has nothing to do with real effective execution. So if we now have, have a notion, this guy is a good mayor. Why is he a good mayor? Because the things are better in the region or in the city. Why they are better? Because they went to Kiev and asked for more money or for more, some advantages for him in favor, and depriving some others of this money. So he just solved personally his things. How do they do that? All of us know. So that has nothing to do with the notion to be a good CEO, which they need to be. And now we have local elections tomorrow. People even don't know that these guys don't have any power. I mean, they just totally depend on Kiev's will. And that's why you don't have a bench of substitutes. That's why all these people, even some of them call themselves Democrats, some of them are from past, or future, or present. All of them are from past. I mean, all of them were had their career started in the 90s. All of these guys who were on Maidan, who were fighting the guys on Maidan, but all of them, I mean, were the new guys. And how can you get new guys with a system when Kiev controls everything? So the new guys, the only way to express themselves is not to start a local company or to become a local, politician or mayor or, deputy, just to go to Kiev and once again ask on bended knees big owners of parties to include in the list. And they will already own their way after that. They already own them and they already should be sort of grateful, and the gratefulness you always also know what it means. They all are constrained after that. So you will have a competition of concepts and success or failed stories in different constituencies. So social elites will bring up to central rulerships those who really deserve it. And this is a sort of independent, how we have now musical platforms nowadays. So 90s and 80s, they still had big major labels who sort of dictated to people what music you should listen. They just promoted the band or the artist they wanted. They put a lot of money there, and that's what you had. Nowadays, you had everything. You had SoundCloud, you have Spotify. You have even on iTunes. It's much easier for an independent to come there. You have YouTube, many other things. So everybody can come, and people just take their pick. Many of these new big stars in America just came up from there. So record companies and A&R managers are no longer responsible for for a supply, but rather a musical repertoire platform users do it by interactively acting with a platform. So demand issue, what I mean, demand issue should surpass supply issue. So you need, what in Ukraine, in Ukrainian politics you do have now, it's you have supply, and then this is a supply, and take what we give you for granted. It should be different. It should be demand, and then after demand you'll find a supply. I know that's basic Adam Smith things. You economists probably know how it works in economics, but the same thing works in politics. Ukraine doesn't have it still. Then, give little and medium-sized success stories, once again, not only in the local levels of civil society, but also in the level of country. Police reform in Kyiv is one of that. I mean, probably that changed not so many things, and probably it's just a very minuscule thing, but it gives at least a drop of trust to government. People, it encourages people. Like, Kyiv-Mohylansk Academia as an example of a good, good university. Why shouldn't you replicate that everywhere, like that principle? Have that, change the system of education, because you have a good idea how the things can be done. Not only them, there are many interesting examples of how successful stories in the other universities, like in Kharkiv, Kyiv Polytechnical Institute, in Lviv University. I remember we were the first who implemented this testing system, still in '90s. So you should do it. Government should be smart and shrewd to see something and think strategically how to replicate it and to implement it into the future. Then the third thing is a very I would say it's a very powerful marketing rule or advertising rule, and people like it, although it's probably not. It's a controversial one. You in America call it, I like this term, it's called fried fish. So this is when you have somebody who, like some crooks, thieves, criminals, and you need to get them punished, especially some big and famous. Take 1, 2, or 3 of them and make it happen that they go into prison. But because that means that you are focused on punishing and the rule of, and changing how the rule of law principle, how the rule of law is working. So 1, 2, or 3 open trials are necessary, although these should not be scapegoats anyway, and you shouldn't push too hard, because if you're just focused on finding oligarchs and making fighting with them and then just bringing them to prison, you'll get just guerrilla wars, because these guys have a lot of things to defend and a lot of things to lose, right? Otherwise you get guerrilla wars. They already had it in Philippines, in Colombia, and many other things. So just be shrewd. Don't push too hard, but do something. Because if you don't do anything and you don't have this fried fish, big crooks, thieves, and criminals that you get into prison, then people won't believe that you're gonna do something. Just small examples won't work. And we still don't have that. Education. Initiate negotiation on topics of education with big players like the US or the EU. If they grant you, you talk about, we ask for javelins, or we ask for big financial support or financial aid from IMF, from America and others. I know that now they're talking about like $50 billion, or 20 already been decided, but we need 50 more. And this is a huge money, man. This is a huge money. So they just ask for 10 times less, or 1,000 times less. If they grant you 10,000, your 10,000 brightest students with stipends in top 30 universities, that will cost them 500 millions. 500 millions, it's once again, it's 500 millions, and it's like how times it's significantly less. It's 1, 2, it's 100, it's 100 times less than they ask for from IMF now. 50% of these people will come back. Probably 50 other percent will stay. They will have many families. They change their future, but 50 come back. 10% of them will go to work for government, and they will be different people. 1% will be future leaders of their country, and that's a huge investment with a huge rate, both to the country, for Ukraine, and to the country who will invest in that, because they are all 99% who won't work for government will still be will be left behind. Will still advocate both Ukraine in its effort forever, and will be grateful for the country like the U.S., Canada, the EU, whatever, who provided them with that opportunity. So it will be a big, will bring a big bondage between two countries. So the last but not the least, be modest, sincere and transparent. By that I mean just explain to people what do you know are you gonna do, and what have you done step by step in simple words, by simple means. Also be transparent, be sure that they understand everything, that there is no second thoughts left, there is no uncertainty in what you do and what you explain. If there is something you shouldn't tell, don't tell, but be sure that people understand the majority of what you said. Then be modest. I mean, you can't, have 3 new model Mercedes cars, or have possess 10 big houses and say you are gonna fight with corruption. It doesn't work like that, man. It just doesn't work, because your salary or even your, let's say, business, it's something that probably you can afford 1 living room in all of your houses, or probably 1 bathroom. Yeah, but I understand it's hard, but you need to give up things if you really want to change something. I still don't see that in our authorities. So having said that, I'm almost finished. At the end, I will give you the strategic goals, 7 strategic steps we should do in order to, in my humble opinion, to approach the goal, which is to make Ukraine a successful and prosperous country. So these are 7 goals. 7 strategic issues. Sorry, not goals, issues. So the first strategy, I'll put it here. First, and the most important, that was a big part of our lectures, trust, build trust. I think that's 50% of success. If you build trust within society, civil society, mutual trust between power and civil society, and then finally between civil society and all other people, because civil society is only 10 to 15% of active part of the population if it's in either country, then you are already 50% on the road to success. But there are 6 more. Second, it's decentralization. Give power to local communities. Decentralize decentralization. 3, move over oligarchs. Not eliminate them. Move over. But that I mean, move them over. Do it gradually, step by step. If you want to eliminate them immediately, they will destroy you first. They are strong, probably stronger than everybody. Like even the best efforts you'll do, if they will see that's a mortal combat, you probably will lose. So just move them over. But that's what I mean. They will have a good option not to fight you, but to create a sort of Ukrainian Magna Carta, and you just deprive them of some of their rights and possessions and belongings, but you'll have more space. Moreover, for them, it's easier and more profitable, because believe me, some of these guys, or most of them, are at least smart and they understand that good rules for everybody and having some stronger than now central power is better than Hobbesian war, everybody all against all, what they have now. Because they're not that comfortable as well. They need to fight each other. So don't come to them and say, okay, I'm gonna destroy all of you, or I'll eliminate your business, or I'll take it over. Because that's the same, what they are doing. Come to them and say, guys, here what you need to do, it's new rules, just move over, all of you, you will be the state. The state will be the biggest one. And here you are. You can't eliminate oligarchy also because, first of all, it exists everywhere. It existed in the States in the 90s when you had Rockefeller, Morgan, Vanderbilt, and all these other guys who controlled the biggest state of the country. And what they didn't kill them, they didn't put them to prison, they just passed the antitrust laws. And that helped. Step by step. They still have the oligarchs of this, I will say cartels, which is a more civilized way of naming oligarchs, or more civilized way of behaving. But they have them in Korea, they had them in Japan, they have them in Eastern countries. So how these countries are developing and they're doing well. It's not everybody lives like Scandinavia. It's like it takes you time. Ukraine is not ready to get rid of them because really it's a shrewd and very complicated and sophisticated process. So just move over. By having said that, I don't think that we need to defend them. I don't excuse them. I just want us to be conscious, smart, and wise, and do it step by step. And if somebody says we need to destroy the power of oligarchs, a politician said it to you openly, that's populism. I don't believe they do that. These guys pay you a salary and you talk that you need to eliminate them. No. Just let be conscious. Come to them and create the rules. First, probably it will be not very just rules, not very fair rules for everybody, but better than today. Then in 10 years you'll change it once again. Then in another 10 years, that's what I mean by move over gradually. The fourth is very complicated, but you need somehow to do that. Reform judicial system. And here I have like simple example. I really don't understand why can't we make the same thing we made with police, with judicial system. It's probably much more serious reform, but still, you need a political will. Just imagine one day you take, like, I don't know how many judges do we have or we need to have. Like you take graduates from good schools, Ukrainian, American, whatever, with law education, like 25-year-old guys, boys and girls, and you say them, and you replace with them all the judges we have now, like what they did with police. You say these guys are unexperienced. Yes, probably first 1 or 2 years will be hard, but still, mistakes they do will be having acted sincerely and fairly. They will still create less damage than these guys with experience who we have now. Our airplanes. That should be the biggest strategy, the most focused efforts should be put there. I know it's a very long-term investment. I know that's not something that's going to work today or tomorrow. But the story is, if there is no this seventh step, there is no everything else. Trust, decentralization, oligarchs, everything will work only, in connection with this seventh and probably the most important part. So these are 7 strategic steps we need to make in order to achieve the goal to make Ukraine to be a prosperous country. Finally, at the end, I will say that that's all seems like a theory, and that's all probably seems like some of you who still possess this level of distrust, and I understand and respect that, will say, okay, these are just words. These are just words if only I say that, or if I only do that. But if you guys not only believe in what is written here, but also try a little by little, everybody do your own small part of that, there will be much bigger chance of making these things plausible and happen. And if not only you, but other colleagues and peers in different universities, in different countries, and especially in Ukraine, will think different and will seriously focus on these things, things gonna be different. And for those of you who are studying here, I just want to say that I'm happy that you possess this knowledge, that you are gaining, your head becomes bigger, and that's great. But I'll be happy, and all of country mates will be happy. Then at least part of that big head work of that big head will be committed on the sake of your country. Just do a bite, and the country will have a whole bunch of good things, and the strategy will be successful, and we'll approach the goal. I really ask you to do that. Without yourself, without you, that's only theory. With you, it's a success story. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That really lays out a great framework with true to your physics training about what to do. And I want to pull the thread a bit about how to make this real, the raw material of it. You've had meetings like this all over, yes, fair amount in Europe, all over Ukraine. I heard you give an interview in April of 2014 for public radio when you were at Zaporizhia, and you met with students in Zaporizhia, and you've met with students, name a city, you've probably been in it, talking with students. What are you finding there? Because if you think about, to have what in business school we would call a going concern, what you talk about, how do we build this country so that it develops step by step, that it's sustainable? What are you finding? And you also made an interesting point that really the market segment you need to change when you talk about civil society is just 10 to 15% of the overall population. So what are you finding when you're talking to these 10 to 15% of the population? What kind of themes and what are the raw materials Ukraine has to work with to implement the frameworks you've just described?
Thank you for the question. I'll answer it philosophically. The nature, the origin of a human being is very similar in different parts of the world. So people generally are weak creatures everywhere, and generally have their own, accomplices and fears and hopes and instincts. So raw material, if you say that, I wouldn't say about people I wouldn't call them raw material, because it's a little bit for me inappropriate. But what I think, it's the same everywhere in the world. I mean, the rules and good examples and education and upbringing, they make their things and they make their impact and things that are happening. I gave you an example of South Korea and North Korea, but we can have yours example. I mean, many of you, including yourself, are Ukrainians, but we're brought up in different societies. So you don't behave and you don't think like the Ukrainians who live in that Ukraine, in that Ukraine. And doesn't mean that you are better or worse. No, it means that you were given different framework. So I mean, the material, as you say, you put it in different, how you call this, a form, and you will have different. There is a good word. I don't remember how we call it. Mindset? No. It's vessel. Yeah, a good vessel, right? So it depends on the form. The vessel depends on the form. So I'm talking here about rules. First, tools, how can you build these rules, and then tools, how can you, like the vessel you need, yeah? So I think the people, especially young people, 10-15% of this civil society, they are hungry for changes. They want to change, they want to get changed, they want to have role models, they want to have these new books to study, and they are willing. Probably not to the extent we need today. Probably we still have to do a lot, but I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic, but only when you implement and you like gradual and constant efforts. So you should hold on all the time. You shouldn't, you should carry on. You should be there step by step, but don't lose a second of time. So don't lose the grip, You should be there. And I think that that's why I'm doing all these things. I think that you should keep doing and keep doing and keep doing. Finally, I'll give you probably once again, not a very proper, but still I like the religious example. When Jesus Christ was preaching, nobody treated him seriously. I mean, generally. And actually, his goal was not to create or establish a Christian church. He never had it in his mind. He was just doing things. He was living good life. And as he was that persuasive that his disciples then went and promoted this idea, and it became such attractive that people all over the world, like 2 billion people now, sort of use this framework, and it's like so you need to keep going,
So I hear you saying to be very pragmatic and practical, and to really be ready for a long haul.
Very,
this is
very
not
long.
a sprint.
Not.
You're thinking in terms of decades. You're
Yes.
talking in terms of.
I don't believe in quick changes. Whoever will come and say, I will bring you quick changes, he's either a liar or a naive person.
Given that you talked about the top down and the bottom up, and creating these cells of different behavior, what's your perception now that you've been in the States for
2 months?
2 months, a couple months? How do you perceive the role of volunteers inside Ukraine and volunteers outside Ukraine? And by volunteers, I'm trying to say, it's like people who are not part of official structures of government. And how do you see what are the most effective forms of activity in your opinion?
Actually, I think that volunteer movement in Ukraine is probably one of these key issues that makes my narrative optimistic. Because I think that all of us were surprised in a good way, and were encouraged and impressed by the role volunteers started to play after the outbreak of events in Maidan and the war, war in the East. So, frankly speaking, it surprised me. I mean, I knew the Ukrainian people are ready to do that, but I didn't know that to such extent. So I think it's a good news. What is not a very good news is that still people, and even many volunteers, they do things in the box, not out of the box. And for example, if they have a very straightforward idea, to help to hospitals, to people who have injuries and wounds, and to heroes, and to families of that heroes who died. That's a very clear goal and very sacred, reason to help. And certainly we need to do that. But it's a pity that there are some more, sophisticated and probably not surface goals that people still don't understand they need to work on, like the civil advocates movements, like this, like educational things, like going to kindergarten and schools, some things that won't probably make your ego or your psyche, happy in one day doing that. Because if you work with somebody in hospitals, it's not only helpful for these people, but it also, sort of gains your mood and psyche. Yeah, you feel happy after that, because it's a nature of a person. You want to do best things, and you do good, and you feel somehow invigorated, right? But if you do some routine things, which probably result of that, you won't see it. Probably you'll see it when you get old, and not even in a year or two. You somehow think, okay, I'll do it tomorrow, or somebody else will come and do it, and we need to do that as well. So that's not assault, or it's not a conviction of our volunteers that they are bad. I take a bow to them because they do a great job. But we all need to go further.
So it sounds, Maidan, I think a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around, because it was sort of this leaderless revolution, aggressively leaderless revolution, but it was this crucible that spawned very tangible volunteer efforts. Now it's the long, hard slog of what you're talking about, which is 10 years down the road, or sort of even further. I'm going to open it up to questions in just a minute, but I wanted if you could comment, given your career and your work now, and actually throughout your whole career, you have worked a lot with people in other countries. How do you see people, how are your colleagues around the world, specifically in the Russian Federation, reacting to your work today?
First of all, I don't think that I do something that should, put some, special discussion within the circle of my colleagues in Russian Federation. I don't know what I do something they should think about it. They do have other things to think about it. I'm not somebody like that big and important in their life. They need to keep thinking about themselves every day. Secondly, the most of friends of mine who live in Russia somehow turned out to be people with whom I don't have significant major contradictions and controversy. There is no controversy between us. So I don't have a single person in whom I disappointed, or a single person who thinks in a way that I wouldn't seem him or her to think. That not only means that all of them are good or so pro-Ukrainian, that also means that I also value people very honest, and I don't ask from people more than they can give you. And I don't judge people. I always try to follow that, once again, biblical principle. Don't judge, and you won't be judged. So I just think that people have their own choices. Don't have anybody in my close circle who really treats Ukraine with contempt, or I don't have the people. So I never had them in my circle. I don't have them. So I don't have any disappointment. I don't know what to say. I'm happy that the vast majority of our fans also understand our position. They probably do not share all our views, my views, which is normal and acceptable and understood. But as I understand and as I feel, the majority of our fans in Russia, they do understand and do accept what is my ideas. And actually, my idea was never and will never be anti some country. I don't treat people by their passports, and I don't value people by their passports. I do people by their deeds, even not by their words, but their deeds.
Thanks. I'm going to open it up to questions. I see there are 2 microphones here. If you could come up and please say your name. As an American, say your name. Okay? And then ask your question, and please keep it to questions. Thanks. Go ahead.
I don't see you.
Hi, my name is Bogdan. I'm also a member of board of directors of an organization which is called Razom, which is a non-profit. And I would like first to say that I really share opinions that you described to us. And I would like to talk about, to ask about education, because I was, my friends, they know I've been talking a lot about it, and I really believe that this is the only one thing, not the only one, but also the culture, that right now we have to put all the power into that. Because, I have my sister, she's 7, she's in Ukraine, and I see how she's growing up and how she's reflecting all this what's happening. So right now we just need to give them opportunities to become much more better, much more developed, because when they're painting all these ladders, they're sending to the front line, maybe they don't understand it right now. But in the future, they will really take it seriously. They will look back at that. And if we will give them possibility to be successful, to build their own country, they will boom. It's very long-term project, but it will really give us that what we need, because it will inspire them to build their own country. And what is not happening really right now, the last amount of money is going to education and culture. It's army, it's economics, but if people won't understand how important is to have a large cultural and educational foundation, I mean, just look at the countries like United States, like all the Europe, they have very strong cultural they have very strong cultural background, foundation. So my question is how should we not do this mistake? How should we do that not happen? Not to lose this power that we can use. And it's young people, they were on Maidan, they are ready to change.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If people are ready to change, they change. That's my big answer. And then to clarify this answer, means that in your question you have once again this paternalistic approach I'm trying us to get rid of. Once again you say about the government and how do they spend money or not spend money. Forget about the government. There's no government. You're yourself.
But what I mean, I want to what I mean, we should go there,
yes,
bring more people there, yeah, so they could establish that environment for those people who are growing up right now.
That has nothing to do with government. That has to do with your parents, friends of your parents, your brothers and sisters, your classmates. That's what I was talking about the whole bunch of my lecture. I mean the whole bulk of my lecture. So I don't think that you need to long for for things from government. I predict that because of Ukrainian poor financial situation, in the nearest future, nobody will spend more money on education or more money on culture. I'm not going to think that it's possible. Not because they don't want to, they don't have that money. So what you need to do is, once again, ask not for the country what the country did for you, ask what you did for the country. I never, like me personally, I have never got a penny from Ukrainian government and from Ukrainian country. Never. Nobody helped me. I never asked for that. I never came and said, help me develop our culture. I just did it, what I can, good, step by step, and somehow I succeeded. So I think it's a good example. Once again, why not to have that as a role model? So you're here, in a couple of years you'll be brighter and more intelligent than now because you are in a good place to study. So take this knowledge and implement it. Come back. Once again, when disciples of Christ were not asking a Roman Empire government to give them something to implement this. They were crucified, but in 200 years after that, or 300 after the years, the Emperor Constantine baptized himself. He was baptized. Yeah. So implement your efforts. Sometimes people say me, okay, but it will take us so long. I mean, yes, so what? So it doesn't mean that we don't need to do that. Just stop relying on the government. It's my personal advice. And while do that, you'll bring up more people who will then be in government, which is probably will be better than today.
But you were talking about this program
we got to keep going. We got to keep going. We got to give everyone a chance.
No, I'm okay. Just see. If there is an argument, give me your point, because I just don't want people to shut them up.
I've been talking, you said about the program, like exchange students, like 500 million for students. So this requires government, right?
Yeah, that's true. But it's not to give what you say that's just populistic thing. Please ask government to spend more money for culture. They don't have that money. They just don't have it. So what are we talking about? It's different. What I say, it's instead of asking for javelins of U.S. government, ask them for money or stipends for
well, actually,
students.
Let me pull that thread. Right, I get it now. Because as people in the United States who have traveled to Ukraine, right? We started with that. We are in a position to voice our opinions about increasing educational exchanges to Ukraine, which are already increased, and increase them more, increasing cultural exchanges. That's how we can make our voices heard here in a way that would benefit Ukraine directly. I think that's kind of just to tie that together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This actually kind of stems from the previous question, and it made me think of my experience this summer in Ukraine. I was talking to my friends from Chernivtsi, and they're in college right now, and a lot of them, I was really worried, I guess disturbed by what their experience in college, because the fact that when applying to college, you have to, I guess the idea of bribes is a thing that's very existent, and it kind of, in a way, stagnates the development of people in the college, in the college age. And I think that it's also one of the reasons why a lot of students in Ukraine right now are maybe motivated to go study abroad or just leave Ukraine in general for more opportunities. So I was just wondering, what are some of your ideas of how to prevent that?
First of all, I don't see any problem that many students from Ukraine want to go study abroad. I think that's a good trend, and I only invite this trend, and I only, I support it. Secondly, frankly speaking, the system of how we call it, external independent evaluation in Ukraine, зовнішнє залежне оцінювання, is as
It's like
Yeah.
standardized tests that
I
people,
tell you, yeah.
standardized
Yeah,
tests that people
study.
take to get into university.
Yeah. So they changed that. Probably not 100% of corruption, vanished by that, but they changed a lot, and that's one of these gradual reforms. So now I really know that it's much easier for a talented student from after high school to apply for the best Ukrainian universities. It's probably there are some still, underwater rocks and we still have some things, but it really dramatically changed. I know that. I see the students today in the universities, especially in Kyiv universities, they are like probably the most prestigious and among the best, with those who provide the best education. So students, like the quality of students, slightly changed. Probably it's still not what we want to have, but once again, Rome wasn't built in a day. So the whole idea of my lecture today is gradual reforms. I just don't believe in great leapfrogs. We know what was a great leapfrog in China in the end of 50s.
Right. Thank you.
Hi, Slava, dear guests. I have 3 points to say. First of all, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. We are very grateful you're here today. Second point is, just wanted to mention, it's not a question, that Ukraine has always been a democratic country, because we have a history of Cossacks and Hetmans who were chosen by people, and I believe that we have democracy in our genes. We just got lost somehow on our path. The third point is, I'm studying economics here, and we all know for Ukraine and any other country to be economically prosperous, it needs to have, as you mentioned, a better judicial system and get rid of corruption. As a follow-up to the previous question, we all know when our kids go to school on the 1st of September, they must bring flowers, because, this is something that is accepted. When there is a new year, you need to bring candies or perfume, otherwise you might not get, such a good experience later on. And I feel like this is something that is engraved in kids' mentality or mindset, whatever you like to call it, and this is how people are brought up in Ukraine. So it's not only from up to bottom, but it's from bottom up. And later on in life, people cannot request from the government, and it's kind of perceived as normal to have corruption on different levels, because that's how we were brought up. So my question is, what are some of the strategies, concrete things we could do, few possible ways to get rid of that, and actually do you see this as a threat to our
Thank
nation?
you very much. Good question. I will probably a little bit surprise you when I will say that the habits of corruption, actually they exist in every society, and different strange rules, they exist in every society, and corruption is not the biggest obstacle for Ukraine to prosperity. We have many countries in the world with established corruption, and still on state level in many Asian countries who are prosperous now, they do have that. It's just a tradition. And once again, I'll come back to corruption later, but once again, you say about traditions to bring flowers. Therefore, Americans, that tradition is strange. Yeah, but for many Europeans, it's also strange tradition that you have to pay compulsory tips in American restaurants, which up to 25%. It's also strange, but somehow you live with that. So by that I don't attack these things. I just accept it as a rule within the society. So corruption is bad, or these things, habits are bad when they change the perception of law. Bad that is not the notion that you give, or not a framework when you give some gifts to people, or it's Asian behavior. It's not only Ukrainian. It's many Eastern cultures do have that. It becomes really bad when it alters the work of judicial system and the rule of law. The first thing which should be implemented is the law is equal for everybody. That's either everybody should bring flowers officially, and that's good. I mean,
right.
Yeah,
that's good.
That works.
And it's transparent.
Or nobody is allowed
Absolutely.
to bring them, but it's a choice of people. And when the corruption becomes bad, or the things become bad, when the teacher starts treat people differently after some of them bring flowers or not. And that the same when the waiter in the restaurant in America treats you differently because you didn't give the tips to him. That's a bad thing, because it's just tips and not a thing you need compulsory to pay, and that's also a problem. So you need to fight not the way of giving gifts or paying some things, but to make that how you say that?
By choice.
By choice. I mean, you should either make it officially or just get rid of that, and that brings us to the point when you have a law which you implement to everybody. However bad that law is much better when you have a good law but implemented only to some people and do not to some others. So that's a problem, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just wanted to say one more point, that it's a great idea, since many of our people got used to bringing gifts. Why not to create a law so they officially pay to the...
Or while you're here, go to any public school, learn how the Parent-Teacher Association works, and raises hundreds of thousands of dollars. Parent of two public school kids, we raised $300,000 for our kids' elementary school last year. It was open, it was transparent, all the minutes were visible, the budgets are online, but it's basically the teachers need money to run the school.
Yeah.
So operationalize
America, right?
that. Yes, New York City, downtown.
Yeah.
Operationalize it and provide that the fairness that you're talking about, that there's law. So there are ways to do this, and you can learn it here.
Yeah, just do it officially.
Thank you. Right.
When you do bribes, official bribes, it's not bribes anymore.
Exactly. I have a question over here.
Доброго дня. Thank you very much for coming. My name is Vasil. I'll keep it very straight to the point. So when I look at you, I see the person that has successfully put together a team, a band. What piece of advice would you give to all these future leaders? What is the biggest common denominator in terms of them putting together a successful team to implement what you've lectured today?
There are many things. I don't think that I can name you one. But the first that somehow come up with is you need to be patient. But not obedient, but patient. So it's like you should be ready to be wrong many times, to fall down many times, to fall down and get up, and once again and once again. You should be ready to tolerate pain. You should be ready to tolerate pain. Otherwise, and your pain threshold should be very high. And somehow you need to train yourself to come to that point. So my main idea is, it's not special skills or expertise you need. It's if in English you have a good expression or good word for that, you need to have strong stamina. Stamina, sorry. Yeah, that's what you need. And how can you? That's an interesting question. How you can bring this up? I think part of the story is Eugene's, but part of the story is also, you should be inquisitive, and you should be a sort of, you will always need to ask for more. You know, every day you get up in the morning and say, come on, I do it much worse than everybody else. I need to do it better. Come on, I'm like, it's nothing that I achieved today. I need to do it better. But at the evening, you need to celebrate your achievements. That's what I mean, you know? So you come to the point when you see, oh, I got it, you celebrate it. Next day you wake up and say, you forget everything. So I have nothing once again. Come back. That's what I did, and I'm still doing all the time. All the time. I'll give you my personal example. So when coming to Yale, I saw my peers, my cohort, my friends, my colleagues.
The fellows.
They
all over the world.
Yeah. They're so successful in different things, and they are like, believe me, they're like. I look at their achievements. I know that they as well look at mine, but I mean, say, come on, that's great, that's unbelievable. They know so many things, so I want to be like them, you know. And I start to study hard, to learn many things. 80% of my fellow fellows are native English speakers, although they come from different countries. Because some of them, for example, are
the British Empire.
Yeah, some of them, for example, we have a great, I can say girl because we're friends, but she's already grown-up girl. A great lady from, she's Iraqi origin. She's very famous journalist based in London. She's like extraordinarily smart and intelligent. We have the other lady from Indonesia who used to study at the high school in the States and lived there for a long time. We have guys from India. We have guys from South Africa, from Cameroon. All of them speak English as their native language. When I sit next to them, I think, come on, I need to improve my knowledge of English. So what I do, when I read all the time, I put down all the words I don't know. It annoys me very much. It's like a pain in the ass. But I keep doing every day, every time. At least 10 words a day. I need to do that. And it helps. You know, it helps gradually, step by step. It works. It's not that in 2 months I know 5,000 words more. No. But just even 200 words more. It gives you some new. At least, you know, I was reading a book on eloquence. We read a lot of books. And one of the books on Reagan's eloquence and his manner of speech, and actually we discussed his great speech, which is just called the speech. You know that the one in favor of in support of Barry Goldwater in 1964, when he was just actually started up his political career. It was a great speech, and there in that book, they gave an example of the other great speaker, Franklin Roosevelt, FDR, who actually turned out to use only 1,000 common English words when having his weekly fireside chats. Fireside chats and fireside talks. He used 90% of his words were 1,000 most popular English words. 1,000 English words. It's like five grade school kids, vocabulary.
They got that.
Yeah. But he was great on that. So sometimes you need to learn hard, to study hard, but also to understand that somehow you deserve some sort of respect as well. So that's subtle things, sophisticated things, but you need to do that. Generally, keep going. That's my thing, my advice. Just keep going, no matter what they say.
Дякую.
That's really good. So we'll keep going to the next question.
Hello, my name is Victoria. I would like to address a question of generational diversity in Ukraine.
Of what diversity?
Generational.
Okay.
So, being born in 1990 and growing up in Ukraine, living there until I was 18.
1990, you meant?
Yes.
Okay.
I heard 1919 also, and I was like, wow.
Looking good.
You look good, Daria.
Looking good.
You look good.
Happens all the time. So I can easily speak for my generation, you being an opinion leader amongst people my age. Then we can refer to your generation. And I mean, you were 15 when Soviet broke down.
Right.
And there was those life events of a life change. So it was probably a lot of impressions in that time. And then we talk back to my parents' generation, people who grew up in Soviet times, and people who are very patriotic Ukrainians, but see it differently than I do. And it may not imply so fiercely into your future but the future model, a lot of people of my generation are going to be still present, whereas people of my parents' generation might not be. But it doesn't play into the present because we work with those 4 different generational gaps with a lot of different experiences and views. And you, being as opinion leader, how do you see your views counterfacting amongst those different generations?
Thank you very much. It's not an easy question. When I'll tell you what. When we have our big stadium or like arena, Okeanelze concerts, so I see there people from being like 5 years old till 65 or 70 years old. All of them are there. It makes me happy. That means that at least some touch of my soul, some part of what I'm trying to tell people, sort of reflects in their hearts, and they accept it. So that's about my music and about our arts. So I think all generations, I reckon to say, or I dare say, are there. Then about political views and ways people want to see their country, I see nothing bad. I see nothing wrong in the fact that different generations see their country differently. It happens in every country, in all times of history. The good news for young generation is that finally they have more time in their backpack, and they have that advantage. Anyway, if they're patient, they will win. And it happens like that all the time. That's how civilization moves, and that's how development generally and sustainability is going to happen. It is the nature of law. So don't be worried that your view won't be heard. It will be. Otherwise, it's anti-natural, not natural. So it will be there. But what we need to do is to have big national, pan-Ukrainian, if you want to say that. I don't like this word. It's a little bit imperialistic, but still, pan-Ukrainian discussion on all these topics and issues and things I was talking about. So we should discuss it and on the TV. We should discuss it in like venues like this, or like between audiences of like 1,000 people. We should discuss it in family kitchens. We should discuss it in coffee breaks of students and people. We should discuss it in classes in the school, everywhere. Coming back, by the way, to the school. It's great if we do, for example, 2 things. We should have like anti-corruption curriculum in the school, and we should have this sort of, I would say, like state craft curriculum in
Civics.
School. Civics, yeah. It's what they in Yale call liberal arts.
Yes.
But I like that name. But probably a little bit even more specific. So how to build their country. And I believe, probably once again, it's too romantic and too that understatement of real difficulties. But I still believe that courage, passion, and real commitment and desire to change is even more important than the intelligence and knowledge. Although the second is also important, but the first is more important. If you have courage and desire and commitment, you somehow will gain the knowledge. If you don't, you can be, I know many, frankly speaking, I know many intelligent and broad and smart people who, sorry for the words, who don't give a damn about Ukrainian future. And that's sad.
You've talked, and then I'm going to come to you in a second. You've talked in other venues about how Ukrainians are hard workers, but not necessarily hard thinkers. Because thinking is hard work.
That is true.
If you do it in a way, as you're talking about, of actually applying what you're doing. So do you see these frameworks in terms of a takeaway of things that people can do after today is really kind of take this and use it as a discussion guide to get together with a few people and bang it around and argue and get pissed off and learn stuff and be upset because you thought you heard it one way when Slava said it, but now someone is telling you to start looking at it differently, and your brain is like, oh.
Absolutely. That's what we do. That's what we try to, to wake people up, because distrust is coming also from non-ability and probably lack of desire to think hard, because thinking hard is a job. It's the same kind of a hard activity as like doing something with your hands or like craft or everything. It's a hard thing, and the worst thing with thinking is that you never know, like you never see the right or the final like you don't see that final vessel, Mm-hmm. You always are in a process of making this vessel or creating it, and people want to have the final result. Always, it's in their nature, and they don't see it, and they always, it's that uncertainty that make us feel uncomfortable when we argue. And one more thing, thank you for reminding me that Ukrainians need to learn how to fight. My word fight, I don't mean fight with weapons, but fight like as a verb. To stand up for their rights, not only on revolution in Maidan with stones or even with weaponry, but go to courts, like go to TV, go to their schools to argue with the school director, the parents, or like children. Mm-hmm. Just stand up their rights. We need to learn fighting, because fighting is what we really need. Not like straightforward fighting like army does. Like if we want our army to stay home, mm-hmm. or to stay in their bases, we need to learn how to fight without weapon. Like, either we will fight without weapon, or then army will fight. There is no other choice. We need to fight. Mm-hmm. That's the nature of the game.
Slava, you're studying here abroad, you're getting all this nice experience, and obviously you're coming back to Ukraine, and you will share some of this experience with others. So I have a personal question. How do you see your personal mission in life? Is it something that, do you consider yourself to be a part of like an instrument of change, a facilitator of, enlightenment, anything like that? About yourself, and maybe how do you view music as maybe a powerful instrument of change to bring these fundamental ideas about civic society to in this kind of like a personal message to everybody? Do you have any plans, or have you been thinking about maybe incorporating this into your artwork?
Radio show on Pomatska TV.
Thanks.
That's who it is. I couldn't see you.
Do you want me to become a politician? I don't. Me neither. I'm doing what I'm doing. Probably I'll need to push even harder, and I probably will. God give me time and ability and like power to do that. But I think for the time being, so far my role is to make people thinking, to make people start thinking harder, and to give them the framework, or probably either within which they can implement their thoughts, or just to destroy the framework when arguing. It's also good. So far, I think I'm doing what I'm doing, and I'll keep doing that. Probably will sort of institutionalize these things more. We have foundation People of the Future. We also have links with the different other foundations. But I just don't want to be part of another NGO. We have many of them. If my role can be in a sort of a moral facilitator, of a moral trigger, or spiritual trigger. Sorry for putting it that high, but I would be happy with that. If one day they say that people like myself are needed in some other, field work, even political work, I wouldn't be happy with this challenge, because I just don't want to give up what I'm doing, and I'm loving it that much. It's a big sacrifice, but if I see right time and right place, I don't know. Once again, it's not a sneaky answer. I really don't want to become a politician. I just want you to get it clear. And not because I don't like politics. I just love music that much that I just don't want to give it up. But I see, and the other thing, there's this practical one. So before you go doing something top down, you need, I believe, in more serious changes could be done in this bottom-up movement. And where I am, that's where I am now, and I think it's much more important, at least so far. Many great thinkers and people who played a big role in their countries, they never became political leaders or number ones in their countries, in official way, but still they made a lot of good things for their countries. And we can name tons of the people. Like Benjamin Franklin never was a president of the United States, but without him, I think probably independent would have had.
Ambassador.
Yeah, but still, it would have had pure in France. I know. Yeah, but still, I remember reading many things about American history and Revolution times, and I think he was rather a person who inspired others and taught others, then was a part of that, political team. Although he's considered one of the father's founders, but I think his role was different, like the role of Washington or Jefferson. He was like 30 years older, and he was just from different generation. His tool was wisdom and broad-mindedness, and he just knew how to do things. And that sometimes you need these people as well. So actually, my ambition is, all my personal ambitions are already either fulfilled or on the way of that. I don't need, my vanity doesn't need, to be, how to say that? Fed ever more. I'm okay with that. But I see politics only as a tool. If I so far I think that my social activity, a part of politics, is much more effective.
Okay. Thanks. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Daria.
And you have earned a lot of money before, honest money before to go to politics. Because I don't know if I will be ready to, because it's a material challenge as well. I mean, probably I need like 5 to 10 years more to work hard before I can go to politics.
Just revenue generating, unless, or hopefully by then the politics in Ukraine will have changed somewhat in their revenue model. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Daria, and my question is going to be actually in the same theme. So you said before that there's a lot of young people, a lot of like people who are hungry for information, who want to learn, want to read, and they're ready to forget this past and start with like present future, right? Like start build it. But there is a thing about people, they need a leader. And that also like about the generation.
They need leaders, a lot of leaders, not one.
And also coming back to the generations, there's like this, I would say, bad mentality from old people who right now in our government, most of them, like majority of them, they have that old mentality of corruption.
Many of them are younger than I am, by the way.
But like still, like people who are in there right now, they still have that like old mentality, and the people, majority of the people who are going into the politics, into the government, they all still keep thinking that way. Like the people who I'm talking to,
that's
like,
right.
A lot of them still think, oh, I'm gonna go there because I can make my future, my grandkids' future. So how do we change that? How, if there is like a lot of people who are ready to do something, right? As you said, start from yourself, but they don't really want to be that leader. They don't really want to be in the top and be responsible because it's like a lot of pressure on you. So how do we manage that? Like community basis is really amazing because you can get together and like do a lot of good stuff together, but still you need to find that leader and you need to promote it, and so your country can get it actually, the right leader.
I know it's impolite to ask girls how old they are, but how old are you? You're very smart. You're very wise. You don't need to tell me.
I'm the same age as Ukrainian independence, 24.
Yeah. So it's very symbolic. Actually, it's a very wise analysis. It's not an age. So what you mean, and what I hear in your question, it's not an age that forms political generation, but perception of life to life, and once again interface in which you were brought up and live, and tend to choose your future. So I know many people who are like in their late 20s and they already are in politics, and they like see politics as their personal career and nothing else. So that's sad, but I see some other people, especially many of them, and most of them are still not at the top positions, but some of them are in politics, who are ready to change that. And there's a number of these people is increasing every day, and I think one day we'll have a critical amount of these people, and it's gonna change. Then coming back to leaders, that's true. And for example, if you guys somehow treat me as a role model or as a leader, I can be that leader, but it doesn't mean that all of these leaders should run for the office, It's just different things. Why me? I can be a good example, or I can teach, or I can argue, or I can, give like advices. It's also a good thing. We really need these leaders, but I think that bottom-up movement is something that depends on us today. Top-down movement is a little bit depends on God's will, because I don't know, sometimes we find these people, sometimes not. Like Singapore was lucky to have Lee Kuan Yew. Probably wouldn't he have been that wise and committed and strong. Probably they would have done different job, and they would have passed would have gone different path, and it would have been different country. who knows that role of a leader is very important, but I think it's not more than 50%. So still, the ability of people on the low level to self-organize, to become confident, and to develop a mutual trust, it's much more important than even leadership.
So another example that you've made elsewhere is the idea of people living in an apartment building coming together to kind of make sure the area around their apartment building is nice. Or a pet peeve of mine is light bulbs in the staircases and buzzers that work. And I live in a condo in New York City, and we don't get along. But there are, again, transparent mechanisms where, like our building, someone comes and cleans the building. So that leadership, as you say, many leaders, can start very, very small.
Yeah.
Like you're a leader. You're leading something.
Yeah,
you led yourself
absolutely.
to the microphone and you asked the question.
And once again, I don't believe it's. You tend to think of quick changes as of some ideal situation when some good leader will come and strongly one day change everything, and they will and here we are. That usually does not happen in the history. Usually when you have people like that, first 5-10 years it works, and that person find him or herself in a position to preserve her or his power to become a dictator. And many countries in the world, for example, countries like African countries, like I'll give you a famous example, probably some of you who are political sciences even have the case. You have Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a great example. When Robert Mugabe came into power, he was a very, he probably was not a Gandhi guy, but he was a good guy. He was a good guy and very, I would say, progressive guy, and they were really doing good in comparison to what were they, like a colony, like Rhodesia colony, before, under British rulership. So they became like very fast change, and he was doing that. And finally, where we find themselves, and where find what is he and what is that. Like it's like, don't rely on one person. That we should get rid of that paternalistic approach. It does not mean that this, tolerant democracy, 100% tolerant democracy is something we need to have now. I don't think that today 100%, I call it Scandinavian model, will work for Ukraine. We need to have tough guys in the top. We do need. But first of all, not one. Second, we need to have a check and balances system. And once again, when we even come to Singapore, I think Singapore is a great example.